I'm Mitchell Levy, global credibility expert, and we're at the funnest time of my day where I get to speak with amazingly cool people about their values, who they are, how they show up in the world. And I'm excited to welcome Jennelle Gordon. Jennelle, so happy to have you here.
Well, I'm stoked to be here. Happy holidays to you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Oh, it's great to have you. So, the question I often toss at the beginning of the conversation is, "Hi, who are you?"
I love it. It's so simple and to the point, right? Well, I'm Shakti, you know? I'm divine, feminine, conscious energy that is here to kind of disrupt the system of what we know of sex and sexuality today you know, in our world. So I think that we've gotten it all pretty fucked up. We're in a lot of trouble in how we're viewing sex and intimacy today. What we're doing isn't working. And we all agree with that, with marriage being a coin toss of whether it's going to work or not. Superficiality has now become the trend in relationships. And how many likes you get, and if you post your relationship online, shows if someone loves you or not. And if your spouse cheats on you or does something you don't like, you can leave them and you can go on an app or even Instagram and find your next hookup or partner. That same day, that same hour, that same minute. And so when people ask who I am, I say I'm Shakti because I am not fully human. I don't think I am, but I'm not. But my mindset is that so born to, it's a, how do I say this? It's a new reality. It's a paradigm shift of how I believe we need to view relationships and sex today. And so I come to kind of disrupt your thinking, what you thought was normalcy, and place some new ideas into your mind of what relationships should look like and how they can be, and to trigger you, quite frankly. And I do that in the form of one-on-one coaching, group masterminds, online programs, and global lecture retreats to help people really shake any shame or anything that's hindering them from having lasting, passionate, orgasmic relationships. So that's who I am.
So I'm going to say yes to that, and I still want to know a little bit more about you. Like
I don't like to brag. What do you want to know? Just ask me.
Who are you as a human? I mean, or obviously you said you were not a human. You're some other.
My mentality is not human.
Okay.
Who was so I'm a woman. I'm a woman who's I've had a very colorful life. I've had a lot of extreme highs and extreme lows. I've gone through or experienced. I don't want to say gone through. I've experienced a lot of things that most people couldn't fathom or imagine. And I don't like to focus so much on that because I like to focus on what I'm doing now in the world and how I overcame those things and what I do now to be a nurturing, loving mother to my, almost 8-year-old who's biracial and who's of European and African descent. And I raise him and give him a life I never had, and so I love that. And I love focusing on being able to help people heal from the most insane sexual traumas they could fathom, because I've been there too. I love being able to help the housewife, the businessman, or the A-list celebrity work through sexual problems that they didn't know there were solutions for, that didn't require them taking a pill. Those are the things that I live for. And all of that, like people say their life is defined in different, like this box is this and this is this. And I'm a work, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm this, here's my job. But to me, it's really all the same because I'm all about love. I'm literally all about the deepest intimate connection possible that leads to really amazing sex and orgasms. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I live that in every aspect of my life, from how I parent to my own relationships to the work I do in the world.
Well, it took long enough for the word love to come out.
Well,
So
love
let's
is just this word is thrown around so much. It's annoying to me.
I know. So that's what I was curious about. What does love mean to you?
Love is no limits. Love is without conditions. There's no such thing as unconditional love. Love is without conditions, period. Right?
Yes.
Love is not just a feeling, it's an embodiment of who you are. You came into this world as love and you leave this world as love, whether you like it or not. And somewhere along the way, that love gets fucked up by what we experience on this journey and the meaning we choose to give to it. So when people say, "Oh, I love spaghetti," or "I love this television show," it's like, that's adulterous to me because you're using that word as if it's so shallow. When I talk about love, I mean staying with someone even when they've hurt you. I mean, if someone cheats, that's not for me to walk out the door at that moment. That's a moment for me to say, "Huh, what is this lesson teaching me? And what is this person needing? Or what is he trying to tell me or she?" Right? Love is staying with someone even when they can't stay with themselves.
Hmm.
Right? Love is
Interesting.
being there for them when they can't be there for them. That's love. We see like the Buddhas, the Mahatma Gandhis, the Amas, the Krishnas, the Radhas, these people that people are like, "Oh, these are avatars." Why can't we have some avatar in us? I mean, there's a whole movie out right now, like the Avatar series, right? I believe in that kind of love. And people, I get emotional because like people judge me for that and say that that makes me weak or insecure. But that makes me actually the strongest person alive because I don't believe that love is a keeping score of what you've done. And if you do enough things, I love you. And if you don't do the right things, I don't love you. That's not love.
Hmm. I, it's so funny when I what popped into my mind when I asked the question was similar to what you said, but I want to tell you something, and then because you have a son who's 8, you know this. I'm not sure I knew what everyone told me I was going to be a parent and life would change. Like you're going to be a dad and life will change, and I just said, huh,
Mhm. Oh yeah.
and
Sure.
and and my wife and I, we were married for over a decade, I think, or a decade-ish when my son was born, and all of a sudden we looked at each other, and almost immediately we both said almost at the same time, by the way, if one of us was drowning, I'm saving our son.
Mm.
Right. And that was just pure love. Like all of a sudden this new this new entity that couldn't take care of themselves was part of the world, and we loved that. He's now 24 and he's pretty
Yeah. He
spectacular,
can
right?
save himself now if he drowns. No, just like
Yeah, exactly. Well, actually, we now say, "Hey, Duncan, you're saving us," but that's something else. But
exactly.
to me, I love I think part of what you said in your answer is you don't like the cancel culture.
I hate the cancel culture. It's disgusting. And with cancel culture, we're talking about ghosting culture, how men and women both do it, and young boys and young girls would really rather never respond to someone than to actually be intimate and have to be vulnerable and share their true feelings like this is not going to work, or I didn't feel that spark, or I just wanted to have sex with you and I want to have sex with someone else. Like these types of conversations, they don't want to have. They're not ballsy or gutsy enough to be real with themselves. So they're not going to be real with someone else. And so when you talk about this cancel culture, this ghosting culture. It's disturbing, to say the least, that this is the world and the generation our children, my son, is growing up into. And I am not about it at all. But people love it. It's a scapegoat.
I was going to say, it's interesting to me. So how are you raising your son differently than maybe the way the way the world is many of people today are raising their kids, or the way you see society?
Yeah, so I'm raising my son differently in regards to how the rest of the world or society does. I'm raising him to be a free man. His name quite literally means free man in West African, in Mali. Amadi means free man. And I tell him all the time, do not listen to what they tell you. I say, and then my son, this is the first year he's been in actual school, and he's second grade. And I felt like after the COVID madness was done, I felt like he needed to be in the structure of the school, because myself, I'm an artist, I'm very feminine. I'm not so structured. It's been very challenging for me to be structured in order to run my business. And this is probably my weakest thing in life, because I'm so feminine, right? And so I said, he needs structure. And so I put him in school, and he loves it. He loves it. We're in Newport Beach. We're in a great school district. I mean, it's a dream, right? One thing I tell him all the time is, you're here right now to learn how to read and write really well. That's what you're here in school for. At some point in time, we will leave school, because schools today are programming you to sit in a cubicle and to be a slave to someone else. And you're not a slave, you're a free man. And he says, I know, Mom. And he doesn't need they say people need social skills. My son's been to 11 countries, and we're leaving on the 7th for him to be about 12, 13, 14 countries. So, like how these are ways that I raised my son differently. I did attachment parenting, which meant I chose to have my son naturally, without any vaccines, without any things. I chose to breastfeed for probably an extremely uncomfortable amount of time that the general public would make fun of me for. And we co-sleep, and we do a lot of things that most people think is really weird. But I do it because I believe in emotional intelligence of human beings today. And most human beings have zero of it. Like grown men, EQ is just like not there. Unbelievable to me. And so a lot of people are like, oh, you're going to raise a beta because he's nursed for so long. He sleeps in the same room with you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, actually, not really. Like, I can literally leave the country for 2 weeks and my son won't FaceTime me, maybe once or twice. He's that confident. He knows I'm coming back. He knows what the drill is. He knows he can reach me on his phone or his device. And he's confident in who he is. And so I think parents today are messing up with coddling their children too much, to the point of shielding them from everything and turning them into little minions for the world. And my son won't be a minion. He's not. He's the antithesis of that. And so I think when it comes to, like, I tell him now, like, being a beta man is death. He knows like what alpha and beta is. And I say, is that alpha or is that a beta move? Oh, Mom, that was beta. Okay. How can you do better next time? I tell him, so Shiva and Shakti is like divine masculine, feminine. And I say, you're little Shiva in training. Tell him that now. Are you being Shakti right now, or are you being Shiva? He knows. He already knows. And the other thing I do that's interesting is that I teach him about sex. And I teach him about his anatomy. And he already knows, age appropriate, but he already knows and understands. And parents think I'm crazy because he's only 7. And I say, you're crazy because your kids are 10, 11, 12, and you haven't had the talk with them yet. And they have YouTube that talks to them, and TikTok, and Instagram, and Snapchat. So to answer your question, that's how.
It's fascinating. Thank you for showing up authentically and sharing that way. And it's so interesting because you live in the same space that I do from the perspective of who you show up with your family, who you show up with your friends is also who you show up with when you're on the job, when you're supporting others.
Yes.
And so hearing that, seeing that, it's amazing. A number of the similarities as a parent I felt was important as well, because there's when you have access to all information on the planet, you know, at in your phone or at your friend's brother's, you know, even if he went over at his friend's house, their brother would have whatever it is you want to see, right? So you might as well be aware of that. Pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's
So
just,
what's
again, about having those vulnerability in yourself to be able to create that vulnerability with your children. And people don't want to be vulnerable today, because to be vulnerable means that you have to get real and have the uncomfortable conversations and have the uncomfortable thoughts and scenarios around things that are taboo that shouldn't be taboo, like sex.
I track. I mean, there are a number of elements for those who are paying attention and understand the 10 values associated with credibility. You're echoing so many of them in terms of who you are and what you do. I was curious on the likability side. So there are two elements associated with likability, right? Obviously, you're
I'm
not
very
just
well
likable.
liked. I'm not very well liked.
You're not
by
well
you.
liked. That's fascinating. Tell me why you don't think why you think you're not very well liked.
Because I say I'm not very well liked by the masses, because I mean, I have social platforms. I'm a micro influencer. They've definitely taken my accounts multiple times. I've been deplatformed I've been canceled on every platform there is, including LinkedIn. I don't even have a LinkedIn today. So with that being said, I'm not well liked because I say things that trigger people's deepest wounds and that take down really the structure of patriarchy, of what our nation and things were built on. And I come for the massive multi-billion-dollar industries like porn, human trafficking, etc., with my content. And that is disrupting the masses, and they don't like that because they want you enslaved to your dick and to your porn. They don't want you to be the master of your dick. And so when I use that language, that even there triggers people. Oh, she just said dick and slave and porn. Those things right there is enough. So yeah, so I feel like people don't like me, one, because they feel like I'm not for women. But if you know me and you spent time with me, you spend some time with me, you know, in intimate setting, right, in our mastermind, you know that I love women and that my heart is for them and I want to help them. But how do you really truly help someone? Do you help them by feeling sorry for them and by coddling them and telling them what they want to hear and telling them that it's all going to be okay if they stay a victim? No. You help them by creating, what is this word I'm looking for? You help them by helping to break the patterns that are keeping them enslaved to their pain, their suffering, their traumas, their triggers. That's how you help someone. And that's what I do. You know, when I tell a woman you shouldn't necessarily leave your husband if he cheats, they don't like that. Or when I tell them how much money you make in the bank is irregardless, men do not care about that. They want a woman who can surrender, who can be submissive to their will as this man provides and protects for you and fiercely loves you. Women don't want to hear that. And so they get very triggered. And these are just a few of the topics that they don't like. So I feel like that's why I'm not liked and I'm misunderstood.
But I hear you. So by the way, what we didn't do is we didn't establish a common definition of the word likability, right?
There you go. Okay.
Right? Because what's interesting is you're talking about people's reactions to you. And then sometimes we put these reactions like cancel culture. Oh, they didn't do what we want. Let's just cancel them out. Right. So what's interesting to me is there's a couple elements associated with likability. One, do you show respect? Right. And showing respect. Typically for me, it's like being prepared for meetings, coming early for those that you're dealing with, showing your heart in every situation.
Communication is a huge one, and this generation doesn't believe in it today. The new generations, they communicate, but it's not real communication, right? This is just fluff because they have the devices to do it. But when you talk about being considerate or thinking like, how is this going to affect someone else and our relationship? People don't do that. They just do whatever the heck they want to do. And I think that is, like you said, the credibility, the ethos, that I just had a recent instance of this where, two people that I really care for and love deeply, they're very young though. And I feel like this young generation, like these mid-20s, they haven't really been schooled on like what's appropriate not to do, what's not appropriate. And it was sad to me because more so than my feelings being hurt by their inconsiderate selfishness that I perceived their actions were, which was pretty valid, they still didn't get it. That's what disturbed me more. Like, why does that bother you? We didn't do anything wrong. It's like, really? Like, how do you not understand that not putting someone else's interest or thinking about how this would affect them, how that's not being impeccable with your word or being, showing credibility or I just think that it's a dying art. The art to be truly, just to have that ethos about yourself. As a man, that's all you have is your word.
Yeah, I so agree. Oh, yeah, that's so amazing. It's fascinating to me how similar some of our thought processes are, many of our thought processes, but particularly in this, there are two I wanted to talk about. One, it is all about your word. It is all about looking somebody in the eye, whether it's the hug or the handshake, and you make a promise and then you deliver on that promise, right? It's about when you're in the room with somebody, and you recognize that their interest is more important than yours at this point in time. And just even recognizing that this is how you're bringing up your son. It's about, and this is what's really interesting. And I haven't used the word minion before, and I kind of like that. This is about recognizing that you're not a minion.
Yes. Like you can think for yourself. You can think for yourself. You don't have to be a minion. But I always say, like, this is something I say to my little peer group is like, too much is given, much is required. And it's this standard. Like one of my mentors always says, if you want a better life, raise your standard. Raise your standard. And this, I'm really talking to the men right now because women's standards are too high. That's why we have so many single women right now anyways. I believe anyway. I'm talking about the men. It's like, raise your standard. And to raise your standard means to raise the level of excellence that you operate on. That means be impeccable with your word, like showing up. If you can't, you don't just avoid conversations for days and weeks and months ahead. You communicate. And a real man, a man that's not in his feelings, or I call them falfas. Those are fake alphas. There's so many falfas in the world today. Like these falfas are like, yeah, look at my body. I'm big, I'm strong, and I'm conscious. I have a spiritual practice. But yet they'll get into some kind of little disagreement, or a woman will come and hold them accountable. That's the other word, accountability. A real alpha, if someone holds him accountable, he won't like it, but he'll be like, all right, yep, I needed that. because a real man will rise to the occasion. He will not be taken off of his path. He will not be shook by a woman saying, hey, I'm holding you accountable on some stuff. I'm not telling you what to do because that's not my job, but I am going to hold the mirror back and say, listen, this, you can do more, right? Like, or even if a man comes at them, a real man, a non-alpha, a real alpha is going to be like, you're right, dude. I don't want to admit it. This is my taking a hit to my ego, but you called me to action. I'm going to step up to the plate. I'm going to be a man. I'm not going to be shook. Like men who are shook by women, they're alphas. If a woman really gets to you, you are a alpha. You're not an alpha. I'm sorry. Even if your wife comes at you with the most craziest whatever rant of her life, you're just going to be like, I see you, honey. I got you. And you're going to, let her calm down. You're going to calm down and you're going to go about your day. You are not going to be shook, turning my phone off. Can't deal with this. This is scary to me that our young men are alphas today.
I mean, just for those who pay attention to stuff I'm doing with credibility, think about the authenticity you're hearing. Think about the coachability that's required. Think about the intent and commitment to do the right thing, not what society is saying to you. I'm going to ask, I got 3 more questions. And first is, how best can people reach out to you?
Super simple. The O Factors, like O as in orgasms, factors with an S, theofactors.com. That's my website. You can find out about my retreats. It'll take you to my retreat site. It'll take you, if you want to be a part of my email list. I don't spam, but I let you know when I have events, etc. Tell you about my book that's coming out, all that good stuff. And it will take you to my social platforms. If you follow YouTube and you like long form content or you like short reels and things, Jennelle Gordon is my YouTube as well. And from my website, you can find Insta and TikTok and all that too.
Nice. Jennelle, based on this conversation, is there a question that I should have asked you that I didn't?
That's a great question. I feel like, I mean, we kind of addressed it, but I feel like a great question is, why do you think, you're so misunderstood? Or why do you think people misunderstand you or take, you know what I'm saying? Like, why? I think it's maybe the question is, why do you think you're so misunderstood? Maybe that was it, the first one.
That's actually a great question. So as our final question, let me say, Jennelle, why do you think you're so misunderstood?
Why do I think I'm so misunderstood? Well, this one is this is me being vulnerable. And you can always tell when someone's being vulnerable because they get emotional. And it doesn't mean that they cry or anything, but just some of them do. I'm a crier. I'm super feminine. So I get emotional. I think people misunderstand me because of my past. And your past doesn't have to equal your future, but your past is a part of your future. And it is a part of the person you are. And so although I'm not ashamed of any of my past, it's still, it's pretty colorful. And it's not socially acceptable by any means. So I think I'm most misunderstood because of my past. People see me as this woman who was in the, adult entertainment world, blah, 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 and now who's out. And they sort of still see me in that light because of how I look and because, I wear red lipstick. I have, a large chest, I'm fit. I take care of my body. I date guys, 15 years younger. Like, they want to judge me for those things. And instead of really listening to the fact that I do have ethos, I do show up for my interviews. I fly across the country for them and pay triple airline prices to show up for interviews because I want people to take me seriously. I'm always respectful. Even in some of my most heated interviews, I never call people out of their name. I might elevate my voice slightly, but I'm never yelling or shouting or I'm always just trying to use strong language or whatever I can to get them to break their patterns. But I have my ethos, I have my respect. I do all these things to create and foster intimacy when I am communicating with someone. And so I think that people just, they want something to talk about. And I'm an easy target because I have a past, I have big boobs, I date guys 15 years, like all the stuff. And that's sad to me because they're missing the essence of my heart, which is just, my soulmate told me once, he said, your love language is love. And I was like, that was the best compliment ever. I was like, it is. And it is. And so if you really know me, you know my heart. And you know that through all the pain, through all the trauma, through everything I've experienced in my life, like I really love love. And I want people to experience that really deep, profound, connected, divine, spiritual, orgasmic love that's possible if they allow themselves to be vulnerable.
I'm right there with you. I love love as well. Jennelle Gordon, thank you so much for opening up and basically being you, but thank you for being you. And I appreciate the contribution you're making to those around you. Yeah.
Thank you for having me. It was a real pleasure.
You are absolute my pleasure as well. Thank you. And listen, if you're still here, this is now time to spread some cred dust. Click on the like button, share with your friends, document those aha moments that you want to share. It could have the word minions in there, but whatever it is for you, document those moments. And we'll see you at the next episode of Leaders Living Their Values. Jennelle Gordon, thank you so much. Take care, everyone. And bye now.